Alrighty, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It is Thursday, April 6th. So this is episode number 7 or 8. I think I just wrote it down, but I forgot. It looks like it's number 7. So the title of this one is The Good Parts, episode number 7. I think I got it right. CYO, it's all about relationships. And this is definitely a good part of my life. It's also a little bit emotional, so hang in there with me. So I grew up in Fort Collins, Colorado, northern Colorado. It's about an hour north of Denver. And our family moved to a farm in 1969. I was 7. So my dad bought a property where we had our home and some acreage for farming. We never really farmed per se, but we had it leased out and other farmers would do the work. We had a property across the interstate, I-25, it's a north-south interstate, and Dad bought 240 acres over there. And it had one little pond on it, and then the rest of it was crops, and it wasn't very good because of the soil had so many rocks in it, which we soon, my dad figured out was gravel. Because there's a river nearby. It's the Poudre River, and this is basically the old riverbed, which had just gravel everywhere, which is the blessing that my dad discovered. So really tough to grow crops. Really, we had cattle there in years when I was like 9 or 10, something like that. And so that was a challenge too. And then what evolved was swift ponds. My dad figured out, obviously, that there was gravel to be mined. Gravel can be broken up, and it's the sharp, jagged rocks that provide the glue, so to speak, to hold concrete and asphalt together. So this is a big part of my life ever since I was 7 years old. And I would literally, I got a motorcycle when I was, I don't know, 11, maybe 12, but something like that. But even before then, I would go to across the interstate there's an overpass, and I'll show you some more of this in a moment. And I would go fishing. I learned to hunt there. I had 240 acres of my own, which pretty amazing. And what that 240 acres now is just an amazing gift to the community of northern Colorado. My dad passed away in 2003, and he was very giving, and he wanted to help kids, and I won't go into all the reasons why, but he had a heart for kids that didn't have everything that I grew up with and that he had. So he loved the outdoors, and so as these ponds were being mined, they were literally digging up the topsoil they would remove, and then there was just lots of gravel. It was an old riverbed, basically, so lots of gravel. And the mining company, which are good friends of my dad's son, they said, well, we'll just mine everything we can, and that sounds great, right? And my dad said, no, not at all. I'm going to have you make little ponds as you go along and leave some of the gravel there, of course. And then dig another little pond over here, and then another little one here. And there was one pond that was original and small little pond. That's where I learned how to fish, by the way. And I was spoiled because the ponds were our own. Nobody else fished there. I was like it. And they were catch and release. I guess maybe I would have caught, I don't remember keeping many fish. My dad was he wasn't against keeping fish because we would go on camping trips, catch fish and have them for dinner and breakfast and all those good things. But I really had an appreciation for just catch and release. I mean, I just loved it. So we had a largemouth bass and crappie and bluegill, those types of warm water fish in these ponds. And I would just spend hours fishing. I mean, days, that's all I wanted to do. Well, as mining progressed, there were new ponds developed. And by the way, my dad, another long story, but I'll try to keep it brief. My dad wanted some expertise in all the little ponds, and he wanted different fish, and he didn't know, what do they need? What do they eat? And, the whole life cycle of a pond is pretty, you got to know a little bit more than just dig a hole in the ground. By the way, as you dug a hole in the ground, the Poudre River is actually underground. It's a slow moving river underground. It's coming through the old riverbed. So as you dig it out, you just pump out the water, the mining company would, and that would keep the seep that was coming in, it would keep it out, and they could have trucks down there and doing all this stuff. Then they stopped the pump and the water would just eventually slowly fill up. So anyway, it was an instant pond as soon as you're done. So we ended up with 12 ponds. My dad at one point, he loved to fish, boy howdy, and he was a great fisherman and very much into fly fishing and all that. And we had at one point, I think we had 25 different species of fish. He would put certain fish in certain ponds, which is just awesome. And he just loved, catching, well, let's catch this type of fish here. We had trout in one pond. They don't do well in warm water ponds, but there was a period in time where, the trout fishing was just awesome. It was so exciting. So I've just had story after story of this great, good part of my life, this experience of enjoying the outdoors and learning to fish and learning about, catch and release and understanding the ecology. And there are birds and all the sorts of things, the pelicans, the herons, all the types of wildlife. We had deer, sometimes we had bear, we could see the scat. And so we had all these types of wildlife, on the property too, which was really cool. And so it was just an incredible experience. So my dad died in 2003, which obviously is a very challenging thing because he wanted to give his property to a nonprofit, to something that would literally be a legacy for generations, hopefully. And he didn't know exactly what to do. It was challenging. We had the Division of Wildlife, which is the state organization which maintains the wildlife and things like that. They do all the hunting and all the regulations and things like that. They actually, after his death, they actually proposed. My dad was actually on the appointed commissioner for the Division of Wildlife. It's a big deal. And so they had this great relationship, and they wanted to park equipment at the property. And I'm like, no, that's not what we're going to do. So it was the ponds are just an amazing resource. We're not parking equipment there. So, and other groups like Eagle Claw, which is a big hook manufacturer and other fishing equipment, they had some good ideas, but it just didn't settle with my dad. He was like, no, that's not quite right. So he had a brief conversation with Bob Hewson of an organization that started in 2001. So they were young, they were just developing, they were just getting going. And, Bob actually had a conversation with my dad, which I so appreciate, because you're about to find out that CYO, Colorado Youth Outdoors, was awarded the gift of Swift Ponds, a 240-acre property, which is extensive, by the way. It's a big property, of course. Anyway, Bob said, we're not ready yet. We're not, ready to say we could take care of the entire property and, raise enough money to keep it going and all these things. So he was cognizant that, it was a wonderful gift, but he was saying, we're not quite ready there. So after my dad's death, I got a call from Bob Hewson, and he was very kind and thoughtful and all that. And we had a conversation. He said, well, we had to give the property to a nonprofit. The state taxes were, prohibitive. We couldn't have paid the estate taxes. So anyway, I won't go into the long story. I'm going to get to the good parts because it truly is amazing. So let me prepare. I got a post here. So let me share my screen. So this is probably one of the best good parts I could ever think of in sharing this. So here I am on Facebook right now. And in Facebook, you can just go search for groups, and I have Colorado. And you can see I'm used to doing the search, and Colorado Youth Outdoors is the organization. So I'll click on that. All right, so here it is. It's a youth organization. It's a 501c3, so a nonprofit. So I'll click on right there, and we'll go to their Facebook page. And there we are. There we are. Some of the ponds and the property. By the way, when my dad bought the property in 1969, it was primarily agriculture, growing crops, corn, maybe alfalfa, things like that. There were some marshy areas, so it wasn't all farmed, but primarily there was very few trees. As I recall, there were less than 10 trees. So as you look about what you're about to look at, you're going to see a lot of trees. Now, I want to point out there's a really great story that happened yesterday. I mean, it's just tremendous, and I want to go through this. There's some great news. It's a good part. So the Loveland Reporter Herald, which is a newspaper in Loveland is a very close community. There's a sale of a building, and it's a 100-year-old building, and it sold for upwards, I guess, nearly $1 million. And the owner, which is Roger Kinney, who I know very dearly, he's wonderful. He's giving it to CYO. It's like, oh my goodness. So yeah, the nonprofit is CYO, and there's more in the story. Now, this used to be, I'll zoom in on this. This used to be the headquarters right in the top. Roger Kinney would allow CYO, just as they were beginning to have these offices up in the upper floor. And I met with Bob. This is early on in the early, 2004, when I first met with Bob and started learning about CYO. So there's a lot of other great stuff. And by the way, I mean, what a great article and what a great post that they've done this amazing thing and gotten a tremendous gift. So you can see here and also the title of my video today it's all about relationships, and that's their focus, that's their mission statement in one sentence. So we teach parents and their kids, ideally, generally they're in the teenage years, so from like 9th grade up to high school up to 12th. Those years are challenging for kids and their parents. You may remember, and as I do, yeah, that's when mom and dad didn't know everything there is. I know better, and that type of thing. And so teenagers and parents kind of, they just don't quite connect. So CYO is focused on that to help kids and parents. It's really to get connected. And if it was indoors watching television, that would be great, but that's not the best connection. There's stories, there's time to talk, and times to just be in nature, and all these great things are wrapped up in what CYO is. So they love the ponds. There's a lot of fishing going on, and this is even recent, by the way. This is March 24th, and they're catching fish, and these are some nice fish. Okay, this gal is obviously very excited, and that is a nice fish. That's a nice largemouth bass, so really cool. So but there's other activities. Here's some this may be an offsite. Yeah, this is offsite with Outdoor Buddies, which is another tremendous organization that my dad helped. He would invite Outdoor Buddies. These are people that have been disabled in some capacity, maybe a car accident, maybe any type of other accidents, or veterans who have challenges there. They would be invited to come to Swift Ponds and fish. My dad never let it open to the public, never. But there were organizations that would come, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, church groups, all sorts of things. Here's some of the wildlife that's out there on the ponds. These are all looks like seagulls and some cormorants. Okay, right there. We have a lot of pelicans and things like that. This is one of the largest ponds, and this is just a fraction of it. So the point is, this property is helping build relationships, and their tagline, it's all about relationships, which it is. So this is one of the best parts of my life, and this is one of their fundraisers. This is what's called Holes and Hops, and this used to be a part of the cornfield, which where I maybe hunted geese and did some other things, but and now it's turned into this um, really nice grassy area, and they also have what's called a trap field or a sporting clays event where kids and their parents can learn how to shoot shotguns at clay targets, which is just fabulous. It's one of my most favorite things to do. It's very challenging, very rewarding to bust a clay in midair with a shotgun and talk about safety and the whole deal. It's paramount, which is really good. But this is another fundraiser where they open up the grassy area and they have the little boards there and people throw the bean bags and they raise a lot of money. And this is not the only one. They have a sporting clays event in the guest ranch in the mountains near Loveland, Sylvandale, which is just awesome. There's so much to talk about. I'm just not going to be able to cover it, but they are tremendous. And the value of parents connecting with their kids, and sometimes they don't know how to shoot a shotgun or catch a fish or tie a fly or shoot archery. And all these events, there's a 15-week course or sort of class that you can sign up for. And as a parent and a kid, you go together. And actually, years earlier, when I learned about this, it was encouraged that as you're coming to CYO, you're turning off the radio because it's all about relationships. They wanted the kids and the parents to not listen to the radio and then drive here, get there, and then have the event, but actually begin being intentional about talking to each other, building relationships. And they have this core, it's an acronym called PACT: participate, appreciate, communicate, and dedicate. So there's a lot of activities I can participate. You would participate in all the activities. Appreciate, you appreciate so many different things, just the life you've been given, your parents, your children, whatever, and the fact that you can learn things in the outdoors. So these acronyms are really taught long term. Okay, so here's some of the instructors and awesome stuff. We have corporate sponsors that are just awesome. Here's Otterbox. I mean, they are a huge supporter. They are in Fort Collins. So Otterbox is the company that makes cell phone cases, right? So lots of, and that's one of the most significant things is Colorado Youth Outdoors is so significant because they are so, I'll say professional, but they're organized and very principle centered, that they get and attract corporate sponsors. I will say at the very beginning, here's Larry, he's president of Outdoor Buddies. He lost his arm, okay, and so in an electrical accident. Here he is with kids. He's the best guy ever. He's just the best attitude, and he's always volunteering, and he's actually probably a better shooter and a better fisherman than most people I know. He's really good. But they went out on an event. This is not at Swift Ponds, but it's another location in Colorado. And they went fishing, which is great. So building these relationships, this is a good part. It just brings tears to my eyes how important this is. And so lots, and here's fly tying. Here's Bob Hewson, actually, the CEO of Colorado Youth Outdoors, giving it a go, which is awesome, tying a fly. And it's always, it's challenging and rewarding, and you appreciate what you can do to fool a fish. And that's really a cool thing to do. So I also want to go over to their website, which is coloradoyo.org. And I just want to leave maybe with a lot of information. This annual report is fantastic. It just really encompasses everything they do. I would encourage you, I'll leave a link to the website, coloradoyo.org. Come down and click on the annual report. their budget's over $1 million a year, so that's tremendous. Lots of good stuff, but I'm in the facility here. Let me zoom in on that. This talks about swift ponds. This is our gift, my dad's gift. I'm not going to say it was my gift, although my dad did pass away. It was really my dad's gift to CYO. And so this is, it says Swift Ponds is Colorado Youth Outdoors premier 220 acres. It's 220 because the expansion of I-25 took about 13.5 acres as the expanded I-25. So we're right along I-25. The visibility is amazing. Most people, though, because of the trees, and I remember that, I said there were only about 10 trees when we bought the property in 1969. There are thousands of trees now, so pretty awesome. So I'm going to come down here and bring up this video, go full screen, and just play this for you. It's a really short but great video. Here we go.
See why I'm laughing, see why I'm smiling, see why I'm making new friends everywhere I go. CYO. See why I'm laughing, see why I'm smiling, see why I'm making new friends everywhere I go. CYO. See why I'm laughing, see why I'm smiling, see why I'm making new friends everywhere I go. CYO.
That was awesome. I have to say, I've seen that a lot of times, and it's just amazing. So how many trees did you see in that? Lots of trees. So that's a good part. I've been a part of this organization. I helped in bringing CYO and giving them this gift of this property. I've been an instructor. I've donated, I've volunteered my time. I have done everything. One of the most rewarding things I've ever done. Here's Richardson Hall. None of this was there when my dad was alive, of course. It's all been since. And I mean, look at this, a kid with a shotgun, and knowing how to handle a shotgun and be safe at all times. And archery, safety is paramount. So trust me, we make sure everyone has a fantastic time, and it's all about building relationships. And actually, these activities are something you can do all your life. Fishing, hunting, archery, just those are some really foundational, traditional outdoor activities that are just really awesome. So let's just enjoying nature in the outdoors. It's literally this little island surrounded by Fort Collins, Loveland, Windsor, Greeley, and it's just this little oasis. And as I look back, my dad's intuition and insight to buying this property is just brilliant. And so anyway, that is the good part for today. I continue to just be impressed with this gift. I mean, I was spoiled as a kid that had, unlimited access to 240 acres and and I brought friends and did all sorts of good things. I just didn't enjoy it by myself. I wanted other people to enjoy it. But now my gift is back to the community of Northern Colorado to say, I had this when I was young. Now you get to enjoy it. And it's terribly rewarding. And it's very successful. Obviously, they've just been awarded another $1 million, which is, so amazing. And the idea would be to have other organizations or other kind of sister or satellite areas around the state and even around the country and maybe even the world. Who knows? Those are big thoughts, but the idea of bringing families together and parents and kids together and using the acronym of participating, appreciating, communicating, and dedicating, all these things wrapped into the activities and being reminded, very intentional about changing, just their average, your average day can be so different when you just have a little shift. You have some activities that kind of are challenging yet rewarding at the same time. There's nothing like I've seen two young girls at the shooting facility, and I took a picture of it and actually posted it on Facebook because I said, these girls are demonstrating for safety, standards, so to speak. And I asked, Facebook audience, what are they? What are the safety things of handling a firearm safely? And most people don't know. And I'll just say it's MATT, so MAT. So muzzle, the muzzle of the end of the barrel, that's always pointed in a safe direction. Never, 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 never at anyone, even if it's empty, never. Okay, that's a big safety issue. So A is for action. The action is generally the firing mechanism. So sometimes you have a break action in a shotgun, or you have a bolt on maybe a 22 rifle, or you have a pistol with a revolver and a hammer and all these things. Those are always open and empty. So you can always unload or have the action open so it can't be fired. That's the second safety one. I'm going through this because this is really important stuff. This is a good part. So MAT, so T is the trigger. So sometimes when you're carrying a firearm, it's kind of natural to put your finger in the trigger area. No, you don't. You don't put your finger in the trigger area, and it has a little guard around it until you are absolutely ready to fire that, firearm. There's no reason to have it. So they don't put their finger in the trigger area. That's a biggie. And then the last one is the kind of the safety on and off, right? So those four things make it safe. And I had this picture of these two girls. They had smiles on their faces. They're probably like 13, 14 years old. And most of us seeing two young girls with shotguns would be, oh my goodness, what are these girls gotten into? Yet they were completely safe. They had the mat, the muzzle down on the ground or pointed away safely, never at anyone. They didn't have, the actions were open, and then the triggers, they didn't have their finger in the triggers. And a good friend of mine, I just got to say, this is so good. This is a good part. In explaining this, it's kind of boring and dry. So in explaining, don't put your finger in the trigger area, he would always say, don't, keep your booger hooker out of the bang button. It's so good. Kids just love that. So, I mean, you have to make it fun, and he did. Jeff was just awesome. So keep your booger hooker out of the bang button. So that's the third one. And then the safety on as well is another great safety tip. So here's this picture, these girls, two of them, both having break open shotguns, and they were perfectly safe. They were laughing. And I posted it on Facebook, and some would say, oh my goodness, what have these girls gotten into? Why are they handling firearms? Because they're having the best time of their life. And they typically, in the first couple hours, they hit a clay out of the air with a shotgun. I mean, it's the most exhilarating thing. And to do that with a parent standing right next to you, ooh, talk about driving a car when you're 16, that's a big deal. No, shooting a shotgun, which has a lot of power, and to wield that and then have the cognizance of being safe the whole time, and following a clay that's going out of a trap thrower and hitting it and smoking into dust, that is awesome. And you give your parent or give your kid a high five and like, way to go. It's a huge confidence builder, because then they can learn and do lots of other things. They can catch a fish and know how to handle it and how to be safe with it and return it back to the water. They can do archery. and be completely safe with that. And by the way, it is not easy. And yet a lot of times we'll have, for fun, I've learned to make it fun. As a one of the pro staff, I would do this. I would take a $1 bill and then go walk up to the target. Of course, we have a range is cold, range is hot. So when the range is cold, you can walk up to the target, and then I would just tape up a $1 bill. So earlier I'm like, learn these steps because it's kind of be important towards the end. Well, the end was like, if you shoot and you got to be really steady and you got to learn all the things we've taught, if you hit that dollar bill, you get to keep it. And we would do it. Well, soon there would be, two people hit it, so they both get $1. So, hey, $1. But on the trap rate or on the archery range, when you can say, yeah, I did so well, I was so consistent. That's the thing with a lot of things. You have to be consistent. You just can't throw it up there and pull back and hope. And a lot of times we connect your future life, your goals, to being consistent. We tie that lesson in, all the activities that we're doing, tie that to their life and their future, and just so many ways to do that. And so if you are focused and you do the same thing on a predictable way to do things, right? No matter what you do, if you study hard or you take time to do your homework, or listen to someone teaching things and ask questions, be shown stuff, you can learn anything and you can be successful in anything. So this gives teenagers and their parents some real tools to be successful in life. It really translates well. And I just love doing that. I'm a pro staff member for I don't know how many years, and volunteering, and there are a lot of rat's nests and fishing gear, and I look over and I'm like, how did that happen? And they just got this massive line, and they go, I don't know. And I'm like, you do know, you're just not telling me. So a lot of fun, and a lot of time and energy goes into helping kids and their parents, and so many events and raising money, and it's just an amazing thing. If you set foot onto Swift Ponds at CYO, your life will be transformed. If you, especially knowing what you know about this through my eyes and through my experience, it's the greatest gift that my dad ever gave to the community of Northern Colorado. And like I said, he was appointed commissioner of wildlife for the Division of Wildlife, and had 2 appointments by Governor Roy Romer from 1990 to 1998. And he loved it. He did a wonderful thing, just traveling the state of Colorado, understanding the concerns of hunting and fishing and outdoor activities. And he was so excited about that as he was retired, and just wanting to really do some great things. And then to have Swift Ponds be given to Colorado Youth Outdoors, and that legacy, that history, that just my dad's love for people, and people with challenges, especially, and those that want to give and want to help others. It just all comes together at Swift Ponds at CYO. So that is my good part. And I'm so blessed to have grown up there and to see all that transition. I have 2 sisters, but they weren't as involved with, a lot of the fishing and hunting. They, did some of that, but for me, it's a big deal. For me right now, my greatest love, I love fishing, of course. Actually, let me rephrase that. I love catching. I'm more about catching. And when I go to Swift Ponds, the ponds are all catch and release. So there's great populations of fish, and it's just a matter of time before you catch one. So I'm very spoiled in that regard. I love catching fish. But also the sporting plays, the hunting, or I should say with a shotgun and hitting a clay target. Oh, that is so fun. And there are events called sporting plays that I go to, and it's basically playing golf with a shotgun. You're just hitting the clay targets as they come all over, and if you're at a station, you're shooting. It's just a lot of fun, especially when you have a good group of guys, and there's always a little competition involved, of course. So that's really a big part of my life, and it's really a good part of my life. And I've given lots of time and money and everything I can to help put ponds and CYO be even more successful. So if you're ever in northern Colorado, please get a hold of me, and I'd be glad to give you a tour. If things are going well and you want to donate to a worthy cause, Colorado Youth Outdoors is a 501c3, so it's a full nonprofit, and they love getting really great donations. Sometimes it's equipment or all sorts of things. And so one of the best things is the time that we get volunteers to volunteer and help teach kids, and they do summer camps, and it's kind of like chaos times 1,000. So lot of volunteers needed then. So anyway, thanks for your time. This took a little longer to explain. I'm very passionate about it, so I hope you enjoy that. Thanks for watching, and thanks for just appreciating Colorado Youth Outdoors as you can. And share this video if you want, by the way, it'd be a great one. So with that, another good parts is done for Thursday, April 6th. We'll do one tomorrow, and I hope to see you back then.